Stay tuned. In this episode, we're making jerky 4 different ways, and we're going to smoke it on our smoker to get some of that extra flavor, and then we'll put it in the dehydrator, and we'll see which one comes out on top. So you won't want to miss this one. So I'm here with my little buddy, and today we're going to be making some venison jerky. I've got 5 or 6 pounds of meat here, and I'm going to do several different methods, and I'll show you each of those in different videos. But in this video, I'll be making it with the High Mountain Hickory Blend. But in starting here, basically all we want to do is we want to cut off the fat and any tissue or sinew, any of that, because it'll end up chewy if you don't. So what I find helpful is if you freeze this for a period of between 30 minutes and an hour and a half before you cut, it'll be a lot easier to cut. You don't have to do it, but it certainly helps, especially getting some of the sinew and fascia off. So if we can, we'll get started here and show you how it's done.
Can you cut yet?
Alright, so we've got a pound of venison cut up here, and they're about 1/4 inch slices. And so the first way or method we're going to be making it with is the High Mountain jerky in the hickory flavor. I'm sure a lot of people have tried that, so it'll be a kind of a base test. For this one, I've just followed their instructions. It's for 1 pound of meat, it is 1.5 teaspoons of the seasoning, and it's 2 teaspoons of the cure. So I've mixed it up in this bottle. We'll just spread it evenly over all of it. That's pretty easy to do. So we'll let this sit, and you don't have to let it sit all that long, but we'll let it sit, 4 hours or so at least. And then when we take it out, we'll put it on the smoker, give it some smoke flavor, and pull it off. And then we'll put it in our dehydrator. So it's as simple as that. So to make our apple cider vinegar marinade, we need a few simple ingredients. We'll start out with a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, and I'll post the marinade ingredients and recipe in the description box. We'll also need a 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce. We use 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. We use 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. We use 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. teaspoon of ground black pepper. Now we'll mix the ingredients together. Add a pound of venison, cut to about 1/4 of an inch, but you can cut it to however thick you want it. It's just easiest when you cut it all to about the same thickness. So we'll let that marinate in the refrigerator for 24 hours, and then we'll check back in with it. So now we've got all the ingredients here and we're ready to start the marinade. I'm going to first start with the dry ingredients, and again I'll list everything in the description of the video below, but I first want to start out with my dry ingredients. So I'm going to start with salt. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of salt. A teaspoon of celery salt. I'm going to do a teaspoon of garlic salt. I add a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I add a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper. I add 1 teaspoon of white pepper. I add 1 teaspoon of of lemon juice. I add 1/3 of a cup of barbecue sauce. I add 1/3 of a cup of Worcestershire sauce. I add 1/3 of a cup of soy sauce. 2 teaspoons of meat cure. So we'll combine these ingredients, stir them up. If you need a little bit more liquid, you can always add a bit of water to it. So now that we have everything combined, I'll add the meat, the marinade. And I'll let that sit in the fridge for approximately 24 hours. Just want to make sure I get it all under the marinade here. Okay, so we'll check back in 24 hours. So now it's time for the marinade, and this one's pretty basic. I'm going to start out with 1/2 cup of soy sauce. Do equal parts Worcestershire sauce, so 1/2 cup of that. I'll do 2 teaspoons of cure, meat cure. There's various ones available, but and then finally I'm going to use Twisted Q Sweet Heat Barbecue Rub. So I'm going to do 3 teaspoons of that. The primary ingredients in this are sugar, paprika, and chili powder, I would say, is where they get that heat from. Or, I'm sorry, chili pepper. Excuse me. now we've got, oh, one last thing. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of honey. Okay, we'll stir that up. So I have 2 pounds of venison jerky that I'm going to be putting in here now. And you can also use a plastic bag if that works easier for you. You can just throw it out when you're done. Whichever works for you best. Just want to make sure you cover all your meat, or nearly cover it anyway. And if you don't, just in 12 hours, just flip it or stir it to get some of that meat that hasn't been marinated, to get that in there. So we'll let this sit for 24 hours. We'll come back and start the process. So now that we've let our venison marinate for 24 hours, we kind of want to get rid of as many of the excess juices as we can. We'll kind of squeeze it off, because it's going to take a long time in the dehydrator if you don't get rid of some of that excess moisture. Okay, so we'll finish doing this for the rest of these, and then we'll put it on the smoker. Because I'm just smoking this jerky, and I'm not really cooking it in here, all I'm going to be using is this chimney full of coals. And it's actually not full because I've got some paper in here. I'm going to let that go for a while, and once those are lit, I'll dump them, put some wood in there, and that's all I'm going to do. Alright, so these coals are all lit, so now I'm just going to dump them in. So next I'll throw some wood chips in. I've got pecan here. Some of these are falling to the bottom just because there's not enough coals in, but that's alright. Should give us enough smoke in there. That's a look. I got my first rack here. I'm going to put it in just like a normal wood. The second rack, I essentially put them on the bottom so the handles are facing down, and that way I can just put the rack in right over top. It's smoky, but hopefully you can see there. 2 racks are just sitting on top of each other. And I don't really care about the spacing too much because, again, I'm just smoking them in this for 45 minutes to an hour. And then I will put them in the dehydrator. So it doesn't really matter if they overlap too much. So we'll put the rebar in to keep temps down. And with the reduced number of coals, it'll also hopefully keep it down, or it will keep it down. There we go. And if you can keep it at 150 to 175 in your smoker, feel free to leave it go in there. So we'll check back in once these have been smoked and finished. Okay, so these have been smoking for about an hour. So we can pull them. That's what they look like. So we'll take these inside to the dehydrator and get them started. So when we put them on here, we certainly don't want them to overlap, because those will be the slow cooking or the slow dehydrating ones. Other than that, we'll let this go until it's done. It kind of varies widely based on how thick you cut your slices. So we'll continue putting these on, and then I'll catch back up with you when they're all done. So these have been on for approximately 17 hours, and with these kind of cheap dehydrators, it takes a lot longer than your commercial hydrator or something like that you can get at Cabela's or Amazon or elsewhere. I definitely want to upgrade in the future, but for now, this will work. So these all look good here. You can see they bend and kind of crack. So I'll pull these and sort them, and then I'll come back and give them a taste test and figure out which one is the best. So here's a look at the classic barbecue. This is the High Mountain seasoning jerky. It's the apple cider vinegar jerky. And this is the homemade sweet and spicy jerky. Alright, so all the work is done, and now we get to the fun part. We get to try all these different varieties and figure out which one is in fact my favorite anyway. So first up, we have the classic barbecue. So I'll try that. That's really good. It has kind of an all-around profile. You can taste the smoke. You can taste kind of the sweetness and the flavor of the barbecue as well. It's a well-rounded taste, and I do like that one. I'm trying to think if there is a little bit of a salt taste to it as well. But that's very good. Let's try this. Okay, the High Mountain, excuse me. The High Mountain definitely has a hickory taste. That's the flavor, but definitely has a hickory taste. It's not overwhelming. It's just kind of a subtle flavor, throughout the whole thing. It's not very complex. It's good. I like that. Let's see if I can't take a smaller piece here. This is the apple cider vinegar. Okay. That one, it's a lot more of a unique taste than I was anticipating. It's really sweet, like really sweet, without much sugar or any sugar. I'll have to check, but it gives you that sweet profile for sure. Maybe just a hint of apple, and I smoked with pecan. I can kind of tell, but it's not really noticeable. It's not overly noticeable. It's just a hint. I haven't had anything like this one before, but that's really unique there. I like it. And then this is the homemade sweet and spicy. I had never tried this before, so this is the first time. Yeah, it definitely gives you that first bit of sweetness, followed by a little bit of heat. So, I mean, all four of these I really like. If I had to pick a favorite, let's do the least favorite first. My least favorite is probably the High Mountain seasoning. It's got a decent flavor. It's just doesn't really excel to me at anything. It's just kind of kind of bland. So that one would be my least favorite. Followed probably by the Sweet Heat, only because I think it needs a little bit more of the seasoning in there. So next time I make that, I'll definitely add more of that. But you can taste the Sweet Heat. I think that would be really good with some more. Now between the classic with barbecue and the apple cider vinegar, it's tough to judge both of those because they're both really good and both really unique. This is probably more of a distinct, simple flavor, sweetness type flavor, whereas this is kind of a more well-rounded, the classic barbecue. Gosh, it'd be hard to pick one out of those two, but I think if you're making a whole bunch of it, I'm probably going to go with the classic with barbecue. And if I'm making small batches, I'd probably go with this one. It's like certain beers or whatever. Those first few are good, but after that, if you drink too many of them or whatever, it's not quite the same. Maybe that's a bad comparison, but anyway. So I like all four, but these two are on top, in my opinion, followed closely by the Sweet Heat, and then the High Mountains last. So I encourage you to really try any of these, but my favorites especially, I would go with those without a doubt and be happy to recommend them. So if you've made some of this before, tell me either what your favorite recipe is, or tell me, if you end up making one of these recipes, tell me how it turns out. I'd love to know. So I appreciate you guys watching. I apologize for some of that poor footage, the color in it, but I'm learning a new camera. So anyways, thanks again, guys, and I appreciate you watching. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that button. Thanks. You like it?
It's good.
Good.